A child's mind, a blank canvas, needing direction to find its form. Strokes of paint being added to the canvas as the child observes the world around it, learning and imitating the things closest to it. It is important for the parent to lead their child on the right path, paying attention to what the child sees. For if the parent fails to care for the child properly, the child will live an unsavory life. The final image displayed on the once blank canvas being a painting most grotesque and foul. In this time of growth and weakness for a child, ideologies and concepts can be easily planted into their subconscious without them even knowing until it is too late. There are outside forces that wish to instill the ideological messages to the young minds of the upcoming generation. Ideological messages that many parents would never want their child to be exposed to. So these outside forces must bypass the defenses to get to the easily manipulated children. And the best way to do this is by adding subliminal messages in kids' programming. If the parent isn't aware of what their child is watching, then the wolf in the sheep's clothing will slip past the fence and whisper its tale to the flock. The child being groomed by big corporations in the very living room you thought was safe. Unfortunately, parents are not paying attention to what their children are watching. They simply give their child a phone or a tablet to keep them distracted. Rather than teaching their own child, caring for their own child, the device, the TV shows, becomes the child's teacher. The machine and media become their caretakers, their inevitable masters. The perfect opportunity for big corporations to come in and implant all the foul messages into the minds of the innocent. Bluey is a grand example of decades of scheming. Scheming to produce a kid's show that hides its devious messages so well that an adult wouldn't even be able to detect it. Bluey, the TV show that lulls you into a false sense of comfort, but once it's all over, you are left with a feeling, a deep and hideous feeling in your soul that won't go away. It took me months to find the rot within Bluey, and what I found disgusted me. Some of the content is so vile that some episodes were outright banned in certain countries. Millions of children around the world are being exposed to the grotesque imagery and messages Bluey has to offer. Join me as I rip the expertly crafted veil before your very eyes and reveal to you Bluey's secret agenda.
You just got coconut mauled. Share this with all your friends to totally coconut maul them.
Lamau, get baited, pleb. Yeah, I know, some of you were frothing at the mouth at the thought of there being some dark, sinister meaning behind Bluey. Well, too bad, average QAnon enjoyer, because I have nothing but good things to say about this gem that is Bluey. But the title of the video isn't clickbait. No. There is indeed a secret agenda to the Bluey TV show. It is a very cleverly disguised agenda that once I show you, you'll agree with my conclusion. 95% sure, at least. Anyways, let me first introduce to you the show that's taking the world by storm. Bluey. Now, before we continue on, I must make things very clear from the get-go to, save myself the trouble. This is not a kid-friendly video, so if you're a grimy little creature, also known as a child, go away. Big thing here, this video will contain some very offensive humor, so if you're easily offended, please, for the love of God, click off the video now. You have been warned, so don't get into my comments all pissy that what I said may have upset you, because I will have zero sympathy for you. In fact, I will mock you until you question your very own sanity. So if you're still watching now with the mindset of a white, middle-aged American woman, then you're just fucking stupid, okay? I mean, There's no going around it. All right, you're just fucking retarded. Released on October 1st, 2018, Bluey is a kids' TV show about a family of cartoon dogs going about their average lives in Australia. Each episode running for about 7 minutes, so they're very short. The best way to describe Bluey is to compare it to a slice of life TV show, which I didn't know the phrase slice of life until I started digging a little bit for more Bluey content on YouTube. The main characters of the show are Bandit, the father, Chili, the mother, Bingo, and Bluey, both kids belonging to Bandit and Chili. All charming characters in their own respect, and pretty well crafted writing-wise. I will say, though, there is a unhealthy interest in Bandit. The reason behind that can be debated, but regardless, it still raises some concern. I'm sure that's one of the reasons why, but I'm sure... Which is interesting that he mentioned that, because from what I've heard, the furry community isn't so smitten with Bluey. The show, and not the character Bluey. Though, I'm sure that there are some who like Bluey for some unforgivable reasons. And to those people, I would say...
The darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting.
There are some furries that won't even watch it because of some retarded reason. I mean, hey, less furries watching the show means less smut being made about it. Right? Right?
For the love of God! For the love of God! Please! Damn!
Yeah, I know. We're not getting off on the right foot here, not really making a good case for Bluey. Some of you are even wondering why someone like me, an adult, would want to watch a show for children. Well, it all started with... Thank you, cunt, for the horribly misguided and 100% incorrect conclusion. I appreciate it. Oh, by the way, this is C0N1T, or cunt for short. Say hello, cunt. Okay, you're done. Goodbye, cunt. Goodbye! He's a softie at heart, don't mind him. But as I was saying, it all started when a friend of mine bought a Bluey plushie for his car. I asked him what that character was supposed to be, and he told me it was Bluey, from a kid's TV show. Red flags, alarm sounds, flares started to pop up into my mind when he said that. Instantly, my mind was thinking, oh man, this is a brony thing? This is a brony thing? God damn. You know, creepy old grown men watching My Little Pony and coming up with the most diabolical fan fiction imaginable. But he assured me that it wasn't like that. He told me that Bluey has deep messages in many of the episodes that adults can resonate with. Now, if you know me, I love me a good deep message. Media that can leave a lasting impression on me and keeps me thinking about what it was trying to convey long after the end is my glass of Coke. But I was still skeptical about my friend's assessment on the show. I mean, how deep can a kid's show get? Gentlemen, it goes deep. And it can go deep really fast. It took me a bit to convince myself to watch Bluey, but when I did, I stayed up all night watching Bluey. It was like something clicked inside me while I was laying in my bed watching the funny Australian dogs. Then finally, watching the entire first season, I understood why my friend enjoyed watching Bluey so much. But another question popped into my mind was, are we the only adults that enjoy watching Bluey? Like, is there some small cult following behind the show that I wasn't aware of? To my surprise, we weren't the only ones, and I don't think I can call it a cult following with the amount of people that fell in love with Bluey. It's insane the amount of people who are in their 20s and 30s that would call themselves a die-hard Bluey fan. There are whole YouTube channels and podcasts dedicated to discussing Bluey. Look, here's some people who'll tell you they love the show.
I like watching Bluey because it just reminds me of just the immense imagination I used to have as a kid. I watch it and I can imagine myself doing some of the stuff in that show, and it's a little nostalgic. And I think the show...
My wife put it on one morning just to get kids a bit quiet, and I just started laughing at the stuff they were saying. I also really like that a bit of actual Aussie culture is making its way onto the world stage. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of changed a little bit.
For most of my life without a father, and my mother, being the only provider for us, has had to work long hours, so she has been away for, most of the day. So it's just kind of nice to see what a complete functional family looks like. In a sense, it almost brings back my dad a little bit. Just, it brings back memories of me playing with him when I was little. I wasn't that big.
It's just nice to have a show that you can watch. You can just kind of turn your mind off to and just sit down and have a good time. While there can be some episodes that can make you annoyed or even sad, it's just a really nice show to just sit down and relax to if you've had a long day.
For one, it's a very wholesome show. It teaches life lessons better, I feel, than most kid shows. I suppose it teaches better. It treats kids like they're actually growing in intelligence rather than just spelling everything out. It puts it in a realistic situation, and they sneak a lot of things in there that are actually teaching for some young adults or parents, as example. I don't know, whenever I'm in a bad mood, I usually just sit down and watch a couple episodes of Bluey, and I feel so much better.
I just didn't get to experience very much of that myself. Don't get me wrong. There were pretty good moments, but it's not as great as that. It connects to a lot of people. It connects to adults who didn't, as I said before, have very good childhood, and it connects to parents because,
I'm 21, and so I'm in college, and it can be really strenuous and stressful sometimes. So to just have something to fall back on and just enjoy, just relax for a little bit, it can be really refreshing and therapeutic. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why myself and a lot of other people my age really enjoy the show. I put on 3 episodes in the morning before I go to school, and it puts me in a good mood every single day.
It is fantastic in terms of empathy. It creates a huge case for trying to understand multiple sides of the story from different characters' point of views, showing different situations, showing a really strong family unit, which I think is very much a breath of fresh air when you consider a lot of media is nowadays where frankly a lot of families are rather broken or divided, and they're always just constantly at each other's throats.
I think it's a show just for parents mostly, where it teaches what kids think, but also in a concise way where it's also for kids. And I guess it sells that more thoroughly with the anthropomorphic characters and how the characters have a bond with each other, how it's written. It feels natural in a sense where it feels like these characters.
I think I like it a lot because of a lot of the different lessons that it provides. Because obviously it teaches children, it teaches them different ways to be respectful, different ways to enjoy themselves and be kind. But it also teaches adults better ways to play with their kids and how to handle situations.
It's just wholesome, It's not something you really see anymore. It addresses things that you don't really see addressed in kids' shows.
I'm not gonna lie, furries.
So why are so many adults tuning in to watch a show made for kids? To repeat what my friend said, many of the episodes have a deep message to them. Deep messages that really resonate with an older audience. Let me give you some examples. Episode Onesies has a character that is implied to be infertile. In the episode Copycat, Bluey finds an injured bird that ends up dying. Then we get to see how Bluey copes with this unfortunate event. Then you have the camping episode, one of my favorites, where we see Bluey meet another dog that only speaks French. Even with the language barrier, they get along well, but things get sad when Bluey goes to look for this dog, only to find that he's left the campsite already. But there are surface level things that can get an adult to enjoy Bluey. For starters, the music is done really well. A mix of classical music and original scores. Geoff Bush, the music designer, did a great job in creating an identity for the soundtrack. God, I need the vinyl. I know, but I still want it. Oh, hey, valued viewer! How about you do me the kind favor of buying me the Bluey soundtrack on vinyl, huh? Shut the fuck up! Believe it or not, but the characters in Bluey are actually really fun. I know, kids shows notoriously have a reputation of having really annoying and unpleasant characters. I'm looking at you, Caillou, motherfucker! A lot of thought went into the writing, so of course the characters are going to be fleshed out, which makes them relatable most of the time. Instead of making you want to blow your brains out, the characters makes you want to sit down and talk with them, get to know them. If you had to ask me who my favorite character is, it would have to be Buddy. Little dude doesn't say a goddamn word in all the episodes he's featured in, but hey, he's still vibing, not giving a damn. He's based. Yes. Bluey's secret agenda. It's amazing how many little things you can hide within a show without it being so obvious. Little things that build up in a man's mind, in a man's soul. Watching an episode of Bluey is like injecting yourself with a serum. Its properties slowly coursing through your veins until it starts to change you from within. It's brilliant how the writers of the show managed to create a show that calls upon the soul. So what's Bluey's secret agenda? On face value, Bluey is an animated TV show for kids. In reality, it is a show made for adults. Bluey's primary focus is to teach adults lessons they either were never taught in their youth or simply forgotten. Think of Bluey like a Trojan horse.
Everything in Bluey is made to make the makers of it laugh and enjoy it. And you know, it's a preschool show. We always said it was a bit of a Trojan horse preschool show, and then
Yes. Rather than directly telling you what you should do, Bluey influences the mind through implications found in the story. These implications are strengthened since each story was inspired by real experiences from the writers of the show. So let's take a brief look at the man who created Bluey, Joe Brumm. While not necessarily wanting a career in creating TV shows for kids, Joe Brumm saw an opportunity to forge a TV show for kids that had actual substance to it. Joe wanted to give his TV show a soul, and the best way to do that was to make a TV show based on real-life experiences. But Joe didn't want to make a kids show just for kids, no. Joe wanted to make a kids show that both kids and adults can enjoy watching. Now, when it comes to humans and stories, it is a vital part of who we are as a species. A good story will draw in the eyes of many, regardless of what demographic it was specifically made for. This is where wanting actual substance to the plot comes into play with Bluey. The main reason why so many people are so intrigued by Bluey is because it is very relatable. Instead of having a cookie-cutter message typed up by a robotic monkey running on Windows Vista, the stories are based off of Joe's experience being a father of 2 girls. From his life and others, Joe took these real experiences and molded them into dog-shaped figures. Not literally, but you get what I mean. OMG, he's just like me, for real, is something you might find yourself saying while watching an episode of Bluey. But there's something that Joe doesn't want Bluey to be, which is a show to teach or preach to people as they're watching his show. He just wanted to make a fun kids show that was unlike any others out there. This is why the secret agenda works so well into infiltrating an adult's defenses, pride and stubbornness. Let's face it, folks, the older we get, the less we want to learn due to complacency or due to us thinking that the information that we know is substantial and anything else is unnecessary or just completely wrong. And God forbid anyone attempt to tell us that we're wrong about what we know. If Bluey was a typical kids show that tries to teach you something directly, then I frankly wouldn't be making this video, nor would Bluey be so successful both demographic-wise and award-wise. You see, Bluey's success lies in its show don't tell method of storytelling. The characters from Bluey aren't telling you how to live life. The characters from Bluey are trying to figure out how to live life, which indirectly shows the adults as well. It's reverse psychology, really. The writers want to teach the adults, but they know they'll lose their attention, so they have to act like they're not. It's ingenious, truly. Truth be told, if Joe Brum only decided to create just one season, then his statement that he didn't want to make a show to teach or preach to an audience would hold more water than it does now. Because out of all the seasons, Season 1 feels more childish. Seasons 2 and 3, however, holds more ground in regards of keeping the attention of the average adult. I'd like to think that Season 1 is the bait, and once you fall for said bait, Seasons 2 and 3 will latch onto you and keep you under Bluey's spell. Out of all the episodes, I was able to identify 59 episodes that had a message directed towards adults or had themes throughout the episode that only adults would be able to understand. Rounded up, that's 41% of the episodes that were made for the adults. Anything higher than that, and the secret agenda wouldn't be much of a secret now, would it? I mean, at that point, they might as well start marketing Bluey as a show primarily made for adult audiences. I have selected a few episodes from Bluey to go over so to better show y'all the underlying agenda. These episodes might be one of the best out of the catalog, so if you plan to binge watch Bluey, look forward to these specific episodes. Chess. Bandit tries to teach Bluey how to play chess since he believes Bluey is old enough to learn how to play. Now in this episode, the message is pretty obviously made for the adults in mind. This message being, there is a time to work on your child's mind, and there is a time to work on your child's heart. Both cannot be neglected, or else the effects will show up later on in the child's life. While Bandit tries to teach Bluey how to play chess, Chili's on the sidelines questioning Bandit's motives and asking if doing this was a good idea. After a couple of minutes of failing at teaching Bluey, Chili steps in and delivers this line which really solidifies the idea that this show was really made for adults.
Right now, you kids are little prawns, but one day you'll be queens. And I won't always be there to protect you. So you'll have to look after yourselves. But I'm going to do whatever I can now to help you.
Checkmate.
Work on their heads later. For now, just hearts.
Children who are raised in an overbearing household where a child doesn't have time to be a child will act childish and do things that young people mostly do in their adult lifetime. It is understandable for a parent to want to teach their children complex things so they grow up to be functioning adults. But they must remember to not deny their children their childhood. That's what this episode is all about, really. Beware of pushing your child too far at the early stages. The show. Who would have thought that a balloon could be so profound? Oh wait, the episode's plot revolves around the kids putting on a show for the parents as an attempt to cheer up Bingo after dropping Chili's breakfast. While this episode might not have an overarching message for adults, there is a theme in this episode that only adults would understand. While pretending to be her pregnant mother, the balloon under Bingo's shirt pops. This alone isn't really that deep, but what happens after the balloon pops is what makes this scene more potent. After the balloon pops, Bandit reaches for Chili's hand to comfort her. That little gesture alone suggests that Chili may have had a miscarriage. There isn't really anything else that would suggest Chili having a miscarriage, but the balloon popping in that scene is definitely supposed to mean something deeper. Something that kids aren't going to understand. Speaking of baby-related tragedies, let's talk about the episode Onesies. This episode is so unapologetically sad that after watching this particular episode, I felt changed. I felt as if something was taken deep within my soul and was replaced with lamentations. Yeah, I use big words. Fuck you. Not only do we get a depressing plotline, but we also get a message that is equally as depressing. In this episode, after several years of not visiting, Chili's sister finally decides to show up. Now, the reason Chili's sister hasn't visited in a long time is that it's implied that she can't have kids of her own. She's infertile. We come to this conclusion because of how she acts around the kids and because of the overall message, since it's basically about Chili's sister not being able to have kids. It is so goddamn morbid. Here, listen to it for yourself.
There's something Auntie Brandy wants more than anything as well. But she can't have it. And there's not really anything anyone can do.
Why can't she just have the thing she wants?
because it's not meant to be.
Wagon Ride. The message here for adults is a bit more subtle than the episodes that I mentioned. It's a simple episode where Bandit takes Bluey and Bingo to the park on a wagon. Bluey is really anxious to get to the park, so the episode is about her trying to find ways to be more patient, as Bandit stops every so often to talk to other parents. The message for the adults starts to rear its head when Bandit first corrects Bluey for being so impatient.
Bluey, if I'm talking to another grown-up, you don't interrupt like that, okay?
Dad, I've got a plan. You're not allowed to stop the wagon and chat to your friends. You have to take us straight to the monkey bars. No stopping.
Interesting plan. I know. How about this plan? I'll do what I want, and you don't tell me what to do.
Now, for the white folks watching, or white liberal folks, this might seem like a response your parents would have given in this particular situation. But for us colored folk...
Interesting plan. I know. How about this plan?
Or in my case...
Mira bien, hijo de tu puta madre.
They just don't miss. Anyways, that scene is for the parents who are more intense with their parenting. Rather than blowing up and beating the shit out of your kid, perhaps it would be best to keep a leveled head and find another way to correct your child without having to leave a red mark on the kid's arm. Or face, depending on what time period we're in. It's the right amount of subtle, because if the writers would have made it more direct, then most of the parents and adults would have probably ignored it. Now, from just watching this video, or if you've seen multiple, then you might be asking, is Rigozen retarded? The answer I usually give is yes. Probably. I haven't gone to a doctor to get a legitimate diagnosis, but I can safely assume that there's some loose bolts jingling around in my head right now. But whenever I tell my mother I have a mental illness or something along those lines, she just writes it off and tells me to stop saying I'm retarded, because if you speak it, then it will become truth. She takes this idea a bit too far in some places, but I still find it interesting. Words having the power to affect a person's being. I know words can have a huge impact, but not to the point where if you say, you're going to have cancer, you're going to get cancer. Like my mother, Dr. Masaru Emoto believed that our words, our consciousness, has a direct impact on reality. To test his theory, he got 3 jars with water and put cooked rice in all 3. One jar he wrote love, the other jar he wrote hate, and for the last jar, he wrote the word nothing. For an entire month, Dr. Emoto would go up to these 3 jars and would either say, I love you, or I hate you, to the respective marked jars, of course. And for the jar that said nothing on it, Dr. Emoto would just ignore it. After the month was up, he had his results. The jar that said loved had its rice perfectly fermented. The jar that said hate had its rice contain some mold and was rotting a little bit. But the jar that said nothing, to his surprise, had more mold than the jar with hate written on it. With these findings, Dr. Masaru Emoto concluded that the human consciousness can in fact have an effect on reality. My point is the episode Bad Mood. The episode revolves around Bingo being in a bad mood, so Bluey and Chili try to get her out of this bad mood. The reason why Bingo is in a bad mood in the first place is in the beginning of the EP, Bingo takes a cookie without asking, and Chili spots her, and she says, you're being quite the cheeky kid today, which Bingo takes as, you are being a cheeky kid. Even after explaining what she meant, Bingo leaves upset and goes to Bandit to play Bad Mood. Then towards the end of the episode, after liberating Bingo from her bad mood, Bingo goes to the bad mood and reminds Bluey and Chili that the bad mood isn't bad, it's just misunderstood. Now this is where all the pieces start to fall into place. The lesson here is one needs to be careful of what you say to your child, because it will have an effect on them. Like the jars from Dr. Emoto's experiment, if you positively reinforce your child, they will grow healthy. Or if you negatively reinforce your child, they will not be in such a good state of being. And God forbid you neglect your child altogether, because if you do that, would probably end up dead behind a Chinese buffet due to some sussy Among Us crack that supposed wizard sold them. That lesson might be obvious to a lot of us, but the other lesson that might not be so obvious is just because your child is misbehaving does not automatically mean they're a bad kid. So maybe don't reinforce the idea that your kid is bad, because they might start to think they're actually bad and will start to act to fit that description. Flat pack. Building a swing chair thingy, Chili and Bandit put their heads together to get this project done. As they discard the boxes and other packing material, Bluey and Bingo uses these materials to play with. Admittedly, there isn't an underlying message in this episode, unless you count this as one.
I'm not taking advice from a cartoon dog.
But what's happening on a surface level is something parents can really appreciate. Bluey and Bingo play a game where Bluey is the mother and Bingo is the daughter. As the game goes on, they go through different forms like frogs to dinosaurs and so on and so forth, and as they progress, they get older. Bandit and Chili stop for a moment and start looking at what their kids are doing. They get all sentimental about their kids, basically saying that they made them and they're proud of what they've become. At the end of the game, Bingo is old enough to leave the house, which leaves Bluey all alone, but proud. Proud to see her daughter leave to live a life of her own. And then the best part of the episode comes in. Bluey wonders, well, what now? Chili calls to Bluey to join her and Bandit on the chair swing they just finished building. Bluey walks up to the stairs and reaches her hand out to grab Chili's. If you look at this scene, you'll know they are referring to the art piece, The Creation of Adam, painted by Michelangelo. Now this can mean either two things. In the context of the game, Bluey dies and goes to heaven and rejoins with her parents. Or, two, once her job of raising her daughter is complete, she finally gets to sit down and watch the joy of what she created. It's storytelling like this that really makes Bluey shine. Dad Baby. Do you remember at the beginning of the episode I said there were episodes that had to be censored or straight up banned? Yes, that actually happened, and that's not part of the bit. 2 episodes are currently banned from the US, Dad Baby being one of those episodes. Why was it banned, you might ask? Well, some of you might be indifferent with the answer, and some of you might not be too happy with the answer I'm about to give you. Anyways, in this episode, someone found an old baby straddle thingy, don't remember who exactly, but Bandit puts it on, and the girls decide to play Dad Baby, where Bingo pretends to be Bandit's baby. So essentially, Bandit is pretending to be pregnant. I think we can all start seeing the issues arising from the plot alone. Don't get me wrong, though. I love this episode. It's funny as hell. Bandit carrying Bingo around as he's pregnant honestly wouldn't be such a big deal if it wasn't because of the birthing phase of the game. This episode was fucking wild for this. By all means, this isn't graphic or anything, but this part of the episode got me feeling a bit uncomfortable whenever Bandit was groaning and moaning when Bingo was pulling on his belly hair. Australians must be on some different shit if they were fine letting this pass. Obviously, Disney wasn't gonna allow this in America, so they took it down altogether. I personally don't think this episode alone should get the writers of Bluey to be sent to the gulags, but it's still something where I question if it was a good idea to make that episode in the first place. But again, it's a great episode that adults can enjoy, but probably wouldn't want their kids to see. It's almost like the writers forgot they were making a show for kids. Facey Talk. Parenting is no easy feat. There will be disagreements on how to raise your kids. Facey Talk highlights this in such a way that isn't too depressing or too unrealistic. We see Bluey, Bingo, Muffin, and Socks all in a FaceTime call, or Facey Talk as they call it. Muffin is refusing to share with Socks, so Muffin's mother, Trixie, tries to break it up, but the father, Stripe, assures her that he can take care of it. This is where we see some hints of the parents starting to bump heads with each other. Trixie leaves reluctantly, so that means Stripe is in charge of the situation. Of course, he doesn't have everything under control, so we get to see Stripe chasing after Muffin around the house. Soon the chase leads into the bathroom where we see Trixie pissing. This scene, by the way, was edited out from the American version, so we don't get to see her sitting down on the toilet, but rather just standing up. Anyways, this is where we see a full argument between the two. Stripe wants to put Muffin in timeout, but Trixie doesn't want to. We hear bits and pieces of the argument before the audio gets muted, so we just see them talking. Eventually, they hold hands and hug it out, seemingly resolved. Then they join forces to catch Muffin. Typically, when a parent or someone older watches a kid's show, they don't expect to really relate to whatever is about to happen on screen. But when they watch this episode, parents and adults are going to be shocked with the fact that something as real as a dispute between parents, which is resolved in a peaceful manner, is being shown in their kids' TV show. If the adult in question has an open mind about what they watch, then I firmly believe that they might be curious as to what other relatable things are hidden within Bluey. Camping. By far one of the most talked about Bluey episodes, besides Sleepy Time, and one of my personal favorites. Camping is a prime example of what Bluey is fully capable of. We get a fantastic story and a message that still sticks with me even to this day. While camping, Bluey meets up with a French boy named Jean-Luc. He can only speak French, but even with the language barrier, Bluey and Jean-Luc get along just fine. We get close to the end when we get a heart-wrenching revelation that Jean-Luc has left the campsite. Bluey calls out to Jean-Luc, but he doesn't respond. She goes out looking for him, but he's nowhere to be found. She finally asks Chili where Jean-Luc was, and she tells Bluey that they left early in the morning. Truly a kick to the stomach for anyone with a soul. Oh, but the episode isn't done with us just yet. No, sir.
Sometimes special people come into our lives, stay for a bit, and then they have to go.
But that's sad.
It is. But the bit where they were here was happy, wasn't it?
It is always a difficult thing to see people that you love leave from your life. And for a while, you'll wonder if they'll ever come back to you. You might get lucky, you might not. Luckily for Bluey, though, after a couple of years passed by, she would meet a familiar face that helped her plant the tree which she's currently sitting under. Fundamentally, Bluey is a show for kids, but the show has a big heart, a very solid core, that it manages to capture the attention of any age group without fail. Earlier I mentioned that there is an unhealthy interest in Bandit. Well, the interest isn't unhealthy. If anything, it's sad. Sad because of why so many people love Bandit. Why? Because Bandit is a good father. A good father that many of us wished we had during our childhoods. You want to know why Bluey is so successful? It's because of Bandit. He is the hook that will keep you ensnared. He is the secret behind Bluey's ability to grab an adult audience. You can have all the nice visuals, a sweet soundtrack, well-written plot lines, but at the end of the day, people watch Bluey because of Bandit. The very first episode of Bluey, you see Bandit. Not Chili, you see Bandit. So the next time you're ever presented with an opportunity to watch Bluey, take it. Let the Trojan horse into your walls. Accept the gift and fully expect to be changed from within. Changed for the better. Better in regards to raising your children properly so they can continue to keep the cycle of life going, rather than a cycle of pain and resentment. Do this so we can maybe find ourselves looking forward for a better future. This is Bluey's Secret Agenda. Really? Even with all that, you're still not gonna give Bluey a chance? You're a fucking asshole. Whatever, man. Oh, hey, by the way! Poor little bug on the wall. 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 No one to love him at all. No one to tickle his toes. No one to blow his nose. Hey! I knew you had it in ya. Yeah, I've always found that doing more research on something. Oh, wait, what? You did what? What's happening? Main reactor? But we're in broad daylight. Did the fucking sun die just now? Christ, I hope that doesn't happen again. Do a scan just in case. What? What's wrong? Oh! Holy Jesus! Oh my gosh! Wait, don't leave me! Oh, Jesus! Oh, fuck!
I'm gonna pound you.
Oh, brother, this guy's
Poor little bug on a wall. Ding ching. It's all new episodes of Bluey next, only on Toonami.
Viewing of this tape is prohibited. Discard it immediately. Viewing of